Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self-Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast. Dawn, what do you think about viruses and quarantines? Or Dawn, what do you think about murders and protests and riots and people getting hurt? Dawn, what do you think about murder hornets? That's the one that I will tell you. Somehow they just haven't gotten their due just yet. And I feel like 2020 is going, yes, you're now in Jumanji. We have no idea what level you're in. And oh, by the way, here's one more thing. It's not my job to tell you what I think. That is not my position that I'm honored to take in your life. My position is to teach you how to think for yourself. And that's where confirmation bias shows up. Confirmation bias says that when we go looking for something, we will only look for things that reinforce what we already believe. Yeah. Okay, now there's a challenge because it's really hard to see that there are gray areas that actually hold the potential for growth. Because 80% of who you are as an adult, what you believe right now, was accepted by age 8. Not based on the truth, not based on what everybody experiences, like gravity. Gravity is a universal truth. It works for everybody. No, it was based on how you were influenced, how you were programmed, how you were conditioned by those in authority around you when you were a kid. And so now we have a challenge because you're getting triggered. People are getting triggered all over the place. Well, those triggers actually hold the potential for growth, but right now they're turning on how you can be controlled. A boat was meant to be in the water. When do we have a problem? When the water gets in the boat. People are being emotionally flooded right now. When your emotions tell you what to do, you will go with herd mentality. You'll go with the flow, the direction everybody's heading. You know, only dead fish head downstream. Maybe you should be going in that direction. Or maybe there's a different direction that you should be going that is in alignment with the truth. What's right for you, bringing yourself out at your very best. Keep this in mind. Whatever or whomever controls the emotions controls the person. So whatever you're being triggered by right now gets to control you. And then you're going to fight against that, and things are going to be worse because now you're in conflict that has no resolution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the 7 levels of leadership. And we're going to talk about each of those levels and how it has a dark side. And this is not about, oh, I want to make everything wonderful and we're going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and there's going to be unicorns farting glitter rainbows over our heads. Not the way it works. The only time you experience growth is when you're in a pressure state. When things are going good, no. You enjoy the fruits of your labor at that point. But when you're in a pressure state, That's when you begin to realize, hey, what have I accepted as the truth? What is a belief that I've accepted? And is it working for me right now? Or do we need to expand on it? So you may be very familiar with the core four that I've gone over in the past. Well, there's 3 more levels that go past that only 20% of people will ever achieve. Most get stuck in the bottom 4 levels. The reason why you continue to engage me is because you're one of those 20%ers. So we're going to be talking about certainty, variety, worthiness, validation. And then we move into the additional 3 levels, which is deceit into truth, knowledge into wisdom, and leadership into contribution. Let's start with certainty. This lays the foundation for everything else. Certainty. You learned to be dependent on something or someone outside of you in order for you to be okay. But when that something or that someone goes away or doesn't behave the way you think they need to, you begin to have breakdowns. You withdraw, you'll stonewall. That's because you've never received what's known as transfer of power or transfer of authority. This is the level of 100% responsibility. You know, I was not responsible as a child for some of the abusive situations that I went through. But I was completely responsible as I matured how to use those situations and not point fingers at others and make generalizations that everybody is like this. Instead, it was, okay, what is it that I need to do to become secure that I could depend on me? Instead of saying, you need to make me okay. 401, you need to make me okay. Well, you know what? I don't know about you, but my 401 took a big drop in the last few months. I'm not dependent on that because you know what? I made money once. I'll be able to make it again. All right. I've had family members walk away from me. Okay, great. You know, it's for whatever reason, we're not a fit. I'll find somebody that is. You cannot be dependent upon others to make you okay. Now, when someone comes into my world about this, they're usually coming in because they're relying on a substance to make them okay. It might be nicotine. It could be sugar. It could be alcohol, certain drugs. So those people come in and say, I'm dependent on this. It's helped me get through life. I almost see this substance as a friend. I don't know how I can move on without it. And it's simply because you haven't learned to be able to stay in conflict. In conflict that says, you know what? I want that, but it's not good for me. And I have to stay okay with the tension right now until I discover what is healthy for me. No, we must have an answer. We must have agreement right away. No, it's not going to work. So this is the level. Certainty is the level is when you become secure in yourself that there are opposing forces and there's not always fast resolutions, but that you can continue to discover about how you can make the situation better, not relying on another person, place, or thing to make it better for you. Then we have the level of variety. The level of variety, when someone shows up in my life around variety, they typically say, oh, I can't understand why I'm not happy. I have everything. Great family, phenomenal job, money. Oh, it's, you know, life is wonderful and I'm absolutely miserable. We were never designed to live in utopia. Live in a world where all we have to do is drink, eat, and make sure our species continues. We were never designed for that. And when you're placed in that type of situation, There's a part of you that's going, no, we need pressure to expand, to grow, to experience what are we truly capable of. So when I have clients that are in this position that life is just so phenomenal for them and they are self-sabotaging, what they are actually doing is tearing down the very structure that is giving them that utopia just to give themselves something to do. It is this level where you need the freedom to explore, but that means finding out you're wrong and finding out you're wrong 80% of the time. You know, I worked with someone in business who had all the money available to them for their business. In other words, they didn't have to produce sales. They had almost an unending well of financial backing. And they continued to sabotage their success of their business again and again. It was nothing but an expensive hobby. Why was that? Because they would not put themselves in a position where they might be wrong. Pareto's principle says that, it's also known as the 80-20 rule, that for every 10 things you do, 2 are going to work. The other 8 are going to have varying levels of failure, from all out, this did not work, to, well, there were some things I could keep, but I wouldn't repeat the process over again. So if you're coming from the level of variety, you're sabotaging your very own success, tearing down the very structure that has assisted you this point, because it's your fault that you haven't stepped out to discover what you're truly capable of, because that might mean you're going to be wrong part of the time. But part of the time you're going to be right. This is also known as Matthew's principle. It comes from the book of Matthew, the scripture that says, to those that have, they'll be given even more, and those who haven't, even that will be taken away. Because Pareto's principle also says that once you start on the path of progress, once you get out there to discover what you're capable of and to learn from your failures, that you'll experience even more progress. And that those that decide to hide, to pull back and point fingers at other people and go, my life is supposed to be fabulous and I'm absolutely miserable. You're not supposed to live in a perfect utopia. Quit trying to make it that. You're supposed to get out there and learn and expand because of the pressure that's been put on you to be even better than you were yesterday. Okay. So we've covered certainty, where you've been dependent on someone or something else to be okay, and you have to learn to be dependent only on you, because when those other things go away, that way your identity won't go with them. You've also learned variety, that you must have the freedom to explore and to be able to make mistakes, to allow yourself that, because it's only through that way that you're going to discover and how to bring yourself out at your very best. Now we're going to go into worthiness. And worthiness says, in a dysfunctional way, look at me, look at me, look at me. I am important. We all want to be recognized as being significant, and I'll get to that in a minute. But most people will settle for importance. You can gain importance by being a martyr. Look what I have to give up for others to be okay. No. What they've done is they've dragged you down to their level, and you've allowed it. Okay. Or it is, look at how I have to save everybody. Without me, they wouldn't be able to do this. Yeah, you know what they do to saviors? They nail them to crosses, because at some point the savior becomes the bully. And you're in what's known as the trauma triangle. The trauma triangle says, for there to be a victim, there must be a bully, there must be a hero. The idea is to get yourself off the trauma triangle, because you're always going to be the victim. And when you're the victim, you will look for ways to get attention. Again, remember, this is not your fault. These are learned conditioning behaviors and patterns that you took on as a child. So All right, it happened, but you got to take 100% responsibility for moving forward with it. Not pointing fingers at anybody else but yourself. All right. So what do you really want at the level of worthiness is significance. Significance says that it doesn't matter what I'm saying because my actions speak louder than words. You know, you can get on social media and post all these wonderful sayings all you want. But the people that are making the real difference have got boots on the ground. They're the ones that are serving at the food pantry. They're the ones that are building the backyard deck and access to the driveway for somebody that was in a motorcycle accident that is now a paraplegic, and they're doing it at no charge. They're donating their time. They're the ones that don't have the time to post on social media how important they are and look at me at what I'm doing, because they're actually doing it. This is the level of leadership with worthiness. And you will be significant by showing others how they're significant. Not to say, oh, look at me, I should have wonderful attention for this. No, it's look at what you and I can do together. Behind the scenes, I don't need kudos for it. I simply need to be able to make the world a better place with my actions. And again, very few people will do this because they'd rather get the attention. You know what the problem is with getting the attention? At some point, you're going to do something somebody doesn't agree with. And now there's going to be conflict, and it's going to take you all the way back down to certainty, where you are going to begin to modify your behavior so others can feel okay. All right, then the last level is what we do, what is known as validation. And it's what we'll do in the name of love, but it's not really love, it's connection. Because you've been taught to hold yourself back so others don't feel bad about their lack of success. That the person that comes to me that is having challenges in this area is typically having challenges taking the next step in relationships. Taking the next step and saying, what am I going to risk that maybe it'll work or maybe it won't? But the only validation I need is from myself because I'm putting myself out there. I'm putting myself out there in a way that is bringing out the worthiness in others. I'm putting myself out there in a way that gives me the freedom to fail. I'm putting myself out there in a way that I'm learning to become dependent upon myself, because if that doesn't work out in those relationships and embodying love, doesn't mean I'm going to love those people less. I'm just going to take it someplace else where I'm not going to be made wrong for caring for people like this. So typically, what shows up at this level is you continue to ruminate again and again about your painful past instead of saying, yeah, the reason why I'm ruminating is because I need to find a way to use it, a way to move forward. This is when you take your wound and you turn it into your wealth. This is when you give a purpose to your pain. Some of the most phenomenal drug counselors I know are recovering addicts themselves. It's one of the reasons why I got into the business I did, is to take what I experienced and use it to make sense of things. So what is it that you need to do to take that next step in love by fully expressing yourself? Knowing that not everybody's going to be in agreement with it, that's okay. They have the right to who they are. But if they're not going to be able to honor you in the way that you express yourself, then you take it someplace else. Okay, those are the first four. That's the core four, the beginning levels of development. Now we're going to go into the next three. Only 20% tops will go into these next three, because this is when we begin to look at ourselves, the very next level. is going to be the level of deceit and truth. Because this is the level when we start to recognize we got a dark side. And that dark side can hijack us. That dark side can do everything that I just talked about as far as making you dependent on somebody else for you to be okay, and that you will tear down the very structure that's feeding you to give yourself something to do in order to say, I'm important, look at me, and your validation comes from what the group thinks about you instead of are you fully expressing yourself? We also have a dark side that will want to punish others when we feel like things have been done wrong. Yes, we need to point fingers at others. Well, remember, when you point the finger at somebody else, you got the rest of the fingers pointing back at you. You have a dark side for a reason. That dark side is to be embraced. That dark side is what will draw boundaries and go, my boundaries are pretty fluid as far as I can take in opposing ideas and concepts, because that's the only way we truly think, is by seeing it from the other side. When Gandhi was asked what made him so phenomenal at being able to free his entire country, he said, I can see with clarity my opponent and their viewpoint, and I can understand it. That dark side is meant for you to say, there are times when my understanding of others' viewpoint will begin to threaten me. Threaten me in a way because it wants to hold me back from fuller expression of what is the healthiest for me. And so that dark side is what's going to keep you safe when you give it the proper instruction of how it's supposed to act out. If you don't, then all it's going to do is continue to say, this group is wrong, these people are wrong, look at how they've held me back on both sides. Guess what? Everybody is right and everybody is wrong. But there has to be a line to where you say, this is what I need to do to be my safest. I'll tell you right now, I can go from 0 to bitch in about 2 seconds when you decide to invade my personal space. Many years ago, I lived in an apartment and 2 small boys. I was ground floor and I heard a noise outside my boy's bedroom. I was reading him a bedtime story. And I looked out the window onto the parking lot and I could see that the dome light was onto my car. And I'm like, well, how'd that happen? Now I'm going to get up in the morning to a dead battery. So late at night, I'm going outside in my pajamas, reaching into the car door, just opening it a little bit, turning it off. And that's when I felt him behind me. Let's just say that there are times when you have to protect yourself. And that's the dark side. Do not deceive yourself that you're supposed to be all lightness, all let's hold hands, everything is going to be phenomenal, because it's not. Let that dark side of you know when it's supposed to come out and fight for what's right. From there, you will move into the next level of leadership that's known as knowledge and wisdom. By the way, going back to deceit and truth, that dark side that you hold is not meant to punish others. It's not meant to cause harm. It is meant to create an experience, a security where you can be your healthiest. It's not meant to make others pay for crimes that they didn't commit. Knowledge and wisdom. So what happens here? We all seek additional information, but you can become so head heavy and heart light that you become heartless. The only time knowledge works is when you actually use it. So you discover something and then you actually put it into practice. You implement it, knowing that not everything's going to work. Unfortunately, we have a lot of young kids right now walking around with tremendous amount of debt and phenomenal knowledge, and they can't get a position. Why? Because the actions weren't there. You have to back it up with something that is usable. There are knowledge addicts out there that go from one training to one coach to one book to one course, and they'll tell you all of these phenomenal things that you should be doing. Have they done them themselves? No. But they'll be more than happy to give you advice on how to live your life. This is when you have to act on what you're learning, and you have to act on it right away. When I train certified hypnotists, I know that out of every 10 I train, 2 are going to be absolutely outstanding and phenomenal. I have one of them as a private student right now. I had one last summer. So Miss K and Mr. M, phenomenal. Why? Because as soon as I started giving them material, they already started using it with potential clients. So they were already saying, okay, I've got this. I need to get into action with it. So what I've covered with you today, what are you going to take and get into action with? How are you going to use this to bring yourself out at your very best? And then there's one more level, the level of leadership and contribution. The level of leadership, when you're this type of leader, all you want is followers. You want to amass someone that will just imitate you. This is the reason why I say I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to teach you how to think for yourself, because I don't need any followers. Because what happens when you're this type of leader is that you get put on a pedestal, and at some point you're going to disappoint people, and they're going to tear you off that pedestal. The process and the system always goes on the pedestal, not the person. This happened with an influencer on one of the other social media channels not too long ago. She did something people didn't agree with, and they tore her down because she created followers. What you really want is contribution. That is the highest level of leadership. Contribution is where you create other leaders. Contribution is where you're saying, what can I do on a daily basis to bring this person out at their very best? What kind of environment? Do they just need somebody to listen to them? Do they need someone to help them see another viewpoint? Are there suggestions that can be made? What is it that they need for the environment where they can bloom and blossom? So you turn your light on even brighter to help them find theirs, not so they can feed yours. Okay, let's go over the 7 levels of leadership. Certainty. You will be more than happy to hand your power over to other people, places, and things. And then when they disappoint you, well, it's their fault instead of yours. It's time to take 100% responsibility, but knowing with that 100% responsibility, you're going to be in conflict, and you got to be okay with that conflict of saying, Well, I have to discover what other viewpoints are and what else is out there before I can make an informed decision. I'm going to do the best I can with where I'm at right now, but there's always something else to know, and it's going to come from the other side. Then you move into variety. This is where you give yourself the freedom to fail, because whenever you look for the utopia and everything to be perfect, you will give yourself sabotage to give yourself something to do. We were never meant to be in a utopia. We were always meant to be challenged. The only way a muscle grows stronger is whenever you use weights and say, how far can I push it? You need to start discovering just how far you can push yourself. Then from there, we move into worthiness. You will get worthiness by going, look at me, and all of my problems. Look at me, how I have to save you. Look at me, how I have to martyr myself. No, you don't want people to look at you that way. Start taking action and assisting somebody else. The people that say, look at me and how phenomenal I am and everything that I post on social media and how it's so uplifting, are being outdone by the people who are actually out working with others. That's how you gain worthiness, is by being a contributing member to society, by helping others discover their gifts, talents, and abilities. From there, you go into validation. Validation, in its negative way, says that look at what I have to do. I have to go along with the group. And instead, I'm saying, no, maybe the group is right, maybe the group is wrong. We've got progress and we've got pain involved in everything. You need to discover what's right for you, not what's right for everybody around you. Then after that, deceit and truth. This is when you realize you do have a dark side and it will use you, or you learn to use it. After that, you're going to seek more knowledge. But knowledge is nothing until you actually use it as wisdom by taking the risk of finding out what works and what doesn't. And then from there, leadership. Look at how many people I have following me. They're going to tear you down. Or let me see how I can create other leaders. That's how I contribute. Let me see what space I can create for them to have certainty, variety, worthiness, validation, experience the truth about who they really are through the wisdom that they've already experienced in life. They just haven't utilized it enough. If you have any questions on this, if you need any assistance with it, reach out to me, 636-699-7791. Right now, it seems like the world is a pretty dark place, but it's only dark to you because your light isn't on bright enough. Turn it on brighter. And then when you do, not only will the world be better for you, but you'll ignite the light in the lives of others around you. Thank you.